Welcome to episode 185 of Sawdust Nation Podcast, second one in the year. We have our guest host, Tim from Gears and Fire, joining us today. Nap has taken a nap because he's been on a lengthy schedule, and he's like, I need sleep. So that's fair. Nap needs a nap. So we invited Sam from Burn and Dust on, and he is a fellow that I met in New Jersey. And he's going to tell us a little bit about his woodworking journey, what he has currently going on in his shop. And it should be a fascinating one because not only is he do a fascinating job, he's doing some amazing things in the shop. So when I kick it off to Sam, man, tell us a little bit about what's going on in the shop and, how it all started.
Thanks, Josh, for the introduction. So pretty much how it started actually was in Jersey. Is I always had, a little bit of aspiration for woodcrafting or artsy stuff. I was a big artist in high school, but I started doing a lot of little roughing of woodworking for little instructor gifts or PCS gifts, but never really had any kind of thought on expanding or actually doing anything legitimate until actually when I met you, and you had that big following and all the work that you did, and we talked about it. And after you made my Unity piece for my wedding, and it kind of really sparked a lot of ideas for me on like what I wanted to do, and seeing all your reels and your portfolio, it definitely sparked for me the passion on wanting to get in CNC. So when I finally moved here to Fort Knox in this frigid place right now, I decided as soon as I graduated college, got my bachelor's degree, I bought me a CNC and then just started kind of kicking off from there. Been doing it for the last 18 months now. I've been very welcomed into the community, between the Makers Chat, this Patreon, and everything else like that, following NAP, MPG, and just plethora of other people. And definitely hit a lot of learning curves. And, the Dunning-Kruger effect is like very real when it comes to this stuff, because as the months went by and I started thinking like I perfected some things and, I had a certain way down, then all of a sudden I started seeing other things. And then I was like, oh wait, maybe I don't know what I'm doing, or maybe not as much, but slowly kind of getting in and learned that every maker has their own forte. Every maker has their own way of doing things. There's more than one way to skin the cat per se. But lately, the majority of my projects have been actually just like little PCS flags. I've been doing a lot into 3D modeling inlays into projects and epoxy fills. That's kind of been a thing that's been a hit with a lot of people. And then a big kind of projects I've been doing that a lot of other people like have been shadow boxes, but not in the unique sense of you got a square box with a clear glass or anything, but some that kind of mimics a chevron or a rank or whatever special design that they want. Then it folds open and then it reveals everything else. And then their history, he told through, their patches or ribbons or coins or whatever else that they got, which has been kind of great. As far as like everything else in the shop, been struggling with the functionality of things. One thing I've learned is when you're starting up and you don't have a plan and you're just kind of piecemealing things, you get a CNC, you don't have a dust collection system. So you get a dust collection system, and then you learn like, well, that wasn't really meant for this. So now you got to get the right kind of tubing. Like I have a dust collection system with a 4-inch inlet. The dust boot that I have on my CNC is a 1.5-inch hose. So how do I convert that down without losing the airflow? And then piecemealing that, got a cyclone, but it's a 2.5-inch inlet and outlet. Converting that. What do I use?
Printer.
Well, that's one thing I lack. I do have a little laser, but it's just a diode. And that was a learning curve.
You have a whole community full of them, man. All you got to do is reach out.
Oh, yeah. It's just, try and figure out ways that I can overcome it before reaching out. Because I'm one of those people that tend to reach out when I need help. I'd rather struggle and overcome it myself, which I'm sure like we all kind of have that. Like it's
yes.
Trying to be humble about things, but also not wanting to resource out, do it on your own because everyone goes through the struggles.
Well, that's part of the process. I mean, like, I don't want to say all makers are in general the same, but we all hold certain values, right? Part of the struggle, part of the learning curve is what we all enjoy. I mean, referencing Tim, I mean, like a couple episodes ago, he was telling how he wants to challenge himself more. He knows CAD like a pro. Like he could probably teach a college class on it, right? But he's going to go ahead and learn an entirely new program because, well, he's challenging himself. So, like, that's what we like. We like the challenge. We like puzzles. That's what we do. And, similar to yourself, when you're talking about you're kind of, you were really artsy and, school. I was the same way. Then you join the military and you're not doing anything artsy, and then, you do different things and then you realize you need the outlet for that. Woodworking became mine. It became yours. We were doing a special duty together at McGuire Air Force Base and, we started talking about the woodworking stuff and whatnot. And, I could definitely see that light in your eyes when it came to, wanting your aunt is a maker. So, I'm glad to see you progress like you have. Now, a couple steps back, you say you have a CNC and a laser. Can you tell us what brands, why you went with that particular brand, how it is, what you like about it, don't?
So my thought process on both were vastly different. On the CNC, it was just something like, hey, I'm getting into this. I'm not sure if this is something I really want to do. Like, I wasn't sure if CNC was going to be the right thing for me. I knew I wanted to do woodworking. It's just there's a plethora of different ways on one can do woodworking. And a lot of people look at CNCs like, oh, yeah, you just press a button and it does it for you. Well, sure. Like, if that's what you want to believe, go ahead. But I didn't want to... Yeah.
Start program is a part of the process. Yes.
Yep.
But
there's more, right? There's always more. But when I decided on my CNC, I got a Bob CNC. It's Evolution 5. Yeah, it's an Evolution 5. And they no longer make the Evolutions anymore. They're the Quantum series now. However, it was one of the better rated ones for a hobbyist without breaking the bank too much. I only spent $1,200 on it, which seemed pretty reasonable at the time. It does 2 feet by 24 by 55 inches. So I got a large workspace. And I know a lot of people, they kind of start out on the smaller scale, maybe a 2 feet by 2 feet or 15-inch wide by 15-inch work surface. But me, like, I knew I wanted to do larger projects. And this is before understanding CAD CAM at all and knowing that a lot of CAD CAMs have tiling built into it, where even if you do bigger projects on a smaller work surface, you can tile it and piece it together.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted something that would be able to do it all. And it just kind of fit. And the fact that it's all wood and I had to assemble it myself really kind of drives the tactile learning to where if I piece it together and I build it, I'm going to understand it a little bit better. And when something goes wrong, I know where it's at, or I can troubleshoot it a little bit easier. Like when I came back from the holidays, I had to tear apart my gantry, remount everything, shim my router, and retram it. And it was pretty simple and easy. But if I didn't, piece it together, all those stupid little nuts and bolts, then it might have been a little bit of a different learning curve or a longer process. The laser is just a diode, and it's cheap, little 600 Artur LM31, but it's pretty
that's
good.
That's where I got my start, man. I paid $400 for mine and before all these major brands, and it did wonders. I made more than enough money off that laser.
Oh yeah, like I pretty much already paid well over it in the projects that I've gotten. So like it's definitely paid its dues, but I just wanted something that was going to be beginner level. So I know it's not going to be my forever machine, because eventually I do want to get like an Almtech, something that's going to be able to handle the different things, cut through material a lot quicker, different types of materials, that was something I failed to do my research on. And so like that, if there's one thing I would say to anybody, is like, do the research and for what capabilities you want to do, not just what the machine does, but what do you want it to do? Because I did a lot of acrylic cutting on my CNC before I bought the laser, and it works. Running an O flute, cutting through the acrylic, it's very nice. The only thing is like the edges can be kind of a little bit rough, and you got to sand them down a little bit depending, and you get a little bit of cuts. A laser it's more crisp. One thing I didn't know about diode lasers is getting it to cut through clear or like opaque or reflective acrylic just does not work. You need a CO2 to cut through those materials, are at least a lot easier. So when I'm doing anything that, like even red, I figure red is a pretty dense color, but to the diode laser it's not. So it probably takes me about 15 to 25 passes with the diode to cut through a red sheet of acrylic, versus if I have black, I can do it in about 10 passes and it looks pretty sharp and reduces the time. So I still use the CNC for that. No, but yeah, it was just buying the laser. It was just, hey, what can I do with it? And then, as you were saying, with Tim, learning the different CAD cams, and he wanted to challenge himself. When I got to CNC, I knew eventually later on I was going to graduate up to different CNCs and potentially get a bigger and better one, something that's a little bit more rigid, because that's something about the Bobs that I really don't like. Is it's not as structurally sound as some of these other CNC machines where they have the rail systems, the steel rails, and you can kind of fix them. It's a little more loose, and doing deeper profile cuts or denser wood it's very taxing on the system. But when I bought the CNC, I can progress at hardware, but I wanted good software. So I went and got VCarve Pro. Paid the money for it. It's been great. I love the learning curve, but when going to laser, getting Lightburn, two different softwares, and like how you do node editing, one is different than the other, and learning that there's a lot of times where I'll just go straight to VCarve, and I'll do all my SVG files in VCarve, and then bring it over into Lightburn instead, because I've already learned a lot in VCarve to be able to and it's easier for me, doing the node editing, shaping things out, piecemealing things. It's just made things a lot easier than just pulling in. But I started actually dabbling a little bit more into Lightburn, what it does, is learning the software. So where, in case if I just want to do something in Lightburn, I can now.
Oh, that makes sense. No, I was just gonna say, I've been considering Lightburn as well, but for different purposes. I know the image grab from Lightburn is a lot better than what Vectric has. So that to me is an appeal. The other reason why I'm starting to understand what Lightburn can offer is the fact that when you buy Lightburn, you own it. It's not like some of these subscription things like Fusion
Easel,
or Adobe and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean, there's pros and cons to both, but from what I understand, it was my assumption, or I should say, it was my understanding that you own Lightburn when you buy it. Is that not the case?
You do. The caveat I was going to mention is I think it's 2 years. You get 2 years of updates, and then you have to pay depending which one you have, pretty low price. I think it's $20 or $30, and you get another 2 years of updates, which honestly I do not mind, because if you've ever dealt with Lightburn, I've been using it for a very long time, and what I started with and what it is now, it's a completely different program. The capabilities have changed that much. So every 2 years I fork over the $20-$30 just because I need to see what's coming out next. They just keep making this better.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, Josh, is a lot of these programs every year, they're going to make updates to the software because that's what us makers ask for, and they typically listen. Most of the time, these software companies are listening to the people that actually use them. Like, I mean, SolidWorks too is like every year it's like I'm almost learning a whole new facet of the program that I never knew even existed before. But that's because they're listening to the users. So like if there's a way that you can get involved with the community of the software that you are using, do that. Absolutely.
Well, I know a lot of times, like Lightbird, it has a good fax forum, and a lot of their service reps actually do get in there and they respond back, or they say, hey, like these are some upcoming changes is to look forward to based on some of the bugs and everything that people have mentioned. In like the 1.4.05 that we're at now, I think.
Something like that.
They just dropped like a month after like 0.04 dropped. So like they do listen. They are very responsive. Vectric's the same way. But like what other CAD cams do you mess with, Tim?
So I mean, throughout my career, SolidWorks has been the most prevalent. It's really pricey, but like when your employer pays for it, that's just what you digest day after day. But that, I mean, like it's really nice, and like I am aspiring to own my own copy at some point. But like I am also very versed with AutoCAD, and like there's other versions of it too. I think SolidWorks company Dassault Systems, they make a version of AutoCAD. Shoot, I'm blocking on the name of it now, but like a lot of these, what I call line CAD or 2D CADs, they share a lot of properties and like a lot of similarities. Even going to Vectric, like I'm using the same principles, like engineering CAD principles in Vectric. So I would assume that even going into Lightburn, I could probably see a lot of those same similarities. Like just like how to lay everything out, how to pattern things, and how to use geometry to define certain boundaries and that type of thing. But I mean, I've used CATIA. I don't recommend it. But the thing, like for the most part, like I said, I'm sticking with SolidWorks for now. But I did download the free version, and I'm starting to get my feet wet for Fusion 360. The main reason for that, though, is because I'm a teacher, and I want to teach people how to use SolidWorks, but not everybody can afford SolidWorks. So can I do the same thing with Fusion? Can I apply those same principles with Fusion so I can help people learn the value of 3D modeling? Because there is a lot more to 3D modeling than I believe people realize. There's a lot more that you can do with it. Like when you're trying to illustrate to a customer, like, look, this is what it's going to look like, and this is why I'm adding the feature here and not here. It's a lot easier to do that through a 3D CAD modeling program. Even for your own understanding too, it's like, wow, I did not know that this would not fit or be that as functional as I thought until I modeled it myself and I really started playing with it in CAD. That is the beauty of CAD, is like a further understanding of what you are trying to create.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that I would say about as far as learning like a CAD CAM in essence is it broadens your understanding so much so on how different things fit into each other, your capabilities, the machine's capabilities, and then and things that naturally you would think would not work, but does work. This is just my own mental. But like when I started seeing people doing stacked text onto and they're cutting out, I'm like, what are they doing? Like cutting one piece out and then like laying it on top of each other, but then like realizing that like the software will actually do that for you, and it cuts out in the way that it formulates the code to where it knows. It is just profound on how in depth these developers can get into formulating something that is so accurate to the modeling resolution, to showing you even the chips. If you run a different tool path, how you can kind of clean up if you do like an offset just on the outside of whatever text, you clean it up, and it shows everything 100%. And not like, well, I wouldn't say 100% because there are a lot of things that were in the modeling it may not show what you actually end up getting, but it gets you pretty close instead of saying, hey, like, this is a digital image. This is what you want. Best of luck to you. Hopefully it turns out the way you see it,
Yeah, you're not wrong. A lot of programs do that. I don't know. I just get my feet wet with Vectric myself, or Aspire, I guess. And like, I've been utilizing it the last two. Pants. And believe me, that's fancy thing.
Then using the STLs.
Last 3 projects I did. And in one way, I had to redesign a lot of the stuff I had already, which, it takes a little bit more time because I'm learning a different program. But I tell you what, I kind of wish I would have done it earlier. It's just smoother for some reason. I don't know how to explain it. I got, like you were saying, you get a good preview of your job afterwards. That's how I caught some mistakes before it even happened. Was I was looking at it, I'm like, that doesn't look like it's cutting out right. I was able to go back and fix it before I actually put the wood underneath the bit. So, I mean, like, programs do matter, especially when you start moving these machines around. Did you start off with Vectric, Sam, right away? I forget what program you were using.
So it was Vectric, but initially started off with Cut 2D by Vectric, which...
Okay, that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, and it, at first, I thought it was a bee's knees because everyone was talking about Vectric. I'm like, Cut 2D is Vectric, But there was one important aspect of Cut 2D that was lacking compared to all the other upgraded versions. Even VCarve Desktop, VCarve Pro, Aspire, was the VCarve function in of itself. That thing had saved so much time. You get to use Topaz because when I first got Cut 2D, even doing simple stars, couldn't really use a V bit to its fullest potential. I would have to go out and buy already programmed G code files for some to do VCarve. I couldn't just pull it in. So I then upgraded to VCarve Pro. And it was only maybe 2 months after. My own mistake was when I first got into this, I only had one laptop, and it was my MacBook. And doing research, once again, on what your capabilities are, what you want, what the software can do, is Vectric does not work on a Mac. Cut 2D, VCarve Pro, Aspire, it does not work on a Mac. And I didn't want to go out and just buy a brand new laptop, so I went and spent an extra $250 on a Fusion VMware to where I could emulate a Windows system on my Mac. And I was so I spent $1,800 in software initially when I first started. But upgraded up to Vectric, and then my neighbor, I did him a little piece, he came. This is the problem with my neighbor. I'll have the garage open, and he comes home from work or whatnot, goes inside, pours himself a glass of rum, pours me a glass of rum. He's on the phone. He walks over, drops off the glass, and leaves. He doesn't say a word. I'm like,
good neighbor.
And sometimes I'll be ready to go to the gym, but I'm not going to turn down a gracious drink by a neighbor. It's called being neighborly. But it ended up making him a piece one time, and then he's like, hey, hey, that's like an $1,800 laptop. You gonna let that thing sit in here and collect all that wood dust and slow it down? I was like, dude, it's the only thing. He's like, here, and he gives me this little Asus laptop. He's like,
nice.
Hey, you can have it. I don't use it. It does nothing. So it's my dedicated little laptop. It stays out here in the shop, and it's Windows, so it runs Vectric, and I don't need this emulator. And now I have my laptop back dedicated to my college work or whatever my wife needs for what she needs to do. So it's a lot easier.
I know to run Vectric and Aspire and stuff like that, those programs aren't really resource intensive, as I understand. You could get away with a pretty low level computer to run that stuff. That's why I always encourage people, if you're going to have a computer in the shop, don't make it fancy. What do you have to actually run in the shop that you need a high-end PC for?
The only thing you really need, and it depends on the breadth of your work, is you need the memory, because saving the files, so to kind of save up.
Memory.
Yeah. So for me, I still use my hard drive memory, but I've been relying a lot onto Google Drive. So I'll just upload everything onto my Google Drive, probably maybe once a quarter, I'll just back everything up on there, or just how it's there, and I'm saving up because eventually once you use up all your memory and everything, it does eventually slow down your system. So want to kind of curve that.
Since we're talking on this topic, I have a MSI gaming laptop because before I dived into woodworking, during the winters I would game. I had Steam, and that's kind of what I did. I got away from the consoles and stuff like that. Because all the deployments that went on, everyone's bringing their Xbox and PlayStation. And I'm like, I could bring a laptop that does everything and have the same games. So I digress a little bit there, but that was my main laptop. I would use it in the shop for everything. And now I've been using, like you were saying, Google Drive. And what I do is I have a folder that's automatically backed up and it automatically saves all my Vectric files in there. So, and the other laptop has that downloaded. So it shares that folder across Google, and I can, post a file, go over there, and I can go ahead and use it on there. It doesn't take up any memory or anything else. And it works extremely well. Because I was thinking about doing like a network and, trying to interconnect laptops and stuff like that. And I found that workaround and I've been using it. The only downside is once in a while, the file might take 5 minutes to go ahead and show up on the other end. But I mean, half the time it takes me longer to set things up or do whatever I need to do to get that job moving. And I'm sure there's better.
A lot of times these files too, Josh, they'll fit on a little thumb drive. You just
yeah, absolutely. True. Well, I mean, I was trying to figure out a way.
Who uses thumb drives anymore?
I don't need 50 terabytes over there.
Look, military's scared of thumb drives. They've scared us so much of using thumb drives. It's not even funny.
Well, they're scared of anything that plugs in general. I got accosted at work because I have a little wireless mouse, and it has a USB that plugs in. It just works off like a little Bluetooth. But I got accosted by the S6, the information tech specialist, because I have an unauthorized device plugged into my laptop. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, your wireless mouse. I'm like, it's a mouse. He's like, yeah, but it's unauthorized. So I was like, is this going to transmit any data to China or something? What are you concerned with?
Where did you get that mouse?
Yeah.
I don't know. There are a ton of ways to go about the process that, Sam's doing, I'm doing, and, how Tim does it. As long as it works for you. I wanted a way that I didn't have to worry about a little doggle or anything. And I wanted a way that, if I'm doing a whole bunch of files up, it's already, as soon as I save them, they're starting to load up there, and it's saved on my Google Drive. So, I'm not taking up memory on either one of the computers. I am, it's just totally streamlined.
That also is the beauty of using a cloud system like Google Drive. One of my other buddies that, I actually grew up with him in Nebraska. I lived in North Platte. He lived in Maxwell. We were 13 miles away. Our families knew each other. We didn't know each other, but our families knew each other. Well, fast forward 13 years, and I'm at Fort Dix at McGuire. And this dude, he comes in and kind of recognize the name, and we kind of hit it off. We're like, oh yeah, you're from and turned out we knew all the same people. We actually were in the same unit. We just missed each other by a couple months. But after he PCS from McGuire, now he's out somewhere in Utah, out by Salt Lake. He started getting into woodworking, CNC. He has a Onefinity, and he's just started. He's about 3-4 months into his venture, and he's been hitting the learning curves and all that. And I've, have all my stuff uploaded to Google Drive. Well, I send him a link to my Google Drive, and I was like, hey, you can use this stuff, some of it may not necessarily work for you, but I can share some of the things that I've done, some of my files, even things that I've purchased, and it just kind of allows them to get more of a head start. Or some of these files aren't necessarily cheap. You buy an STL file off of Etsy, it could vary anywhere from like $2 to $30, and if somebody already has it, then, why bother, especially if they're giving you the rights to it.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily the rights, but the permissions to use it. I mean, I guess it would be the rights if I'm buying it, But
I never realized that part of this entire process, programs cost me this much time, and this much worry when it comes to woodworking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I always thought like when I first got started in, I was like, oh man, like the materials, like that's going to be like, the kicker to me. But it turned out to be a lot more. It's, all the supplemental tools, anywhere from the bits. I had no idea the cost of these bits, and like sometimes you get what you pay for. Sometimes you overpay. Sometimes like, hey, you got a great deal. But like those were added costs I didn't think about. Like when I first got it, like $1,500 on a CNC, $1,800 on software. Well, there's $3,000 already, over $3,000. Now I'm buying some materials, some scrap woods, learning the different, how it cuts into the material, what each material does, like pine versus mahogany or maple, to plywood, basic plywood, the different types of plywood. And that kind of created cost. But then I started buying bits. I'm like, like $800 in bits here for what? And they
make
like
quality products.
Yes.
That's why I like Cody from Canon's Manufacturing. His quality bits and his prices that's why we advertise. Like, if you have not tried him and his company's bits and the way he produces, you have to, man, because you're going to get some quality pieces. Yeah.
Downtown Jenny right there. That's the money maker.
I mean, like, they're absolutely 100% worth it. Like, I was buying a lot of bits. And in fact, I have a whole pile right here next to me. I wish that he would have came out sooner with his bit collection, because not only would it saved a lot in like frustration and time, his bits last forever. Like, more so than some of these other coated bits. I mean, like, I don't know how he creates them, what he does, but like, they're high quality and good price.
Yep. Ben hit the nail on the head. Those are ornaments. If you get them off Amazon, those are ornaments.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest. Like, I got my little speed tool, set that I got off Amazon, and they've actually kind of held up their own well. Like,
they cut wood.
Yeah. I will say, like, I don't know if it's mainly because of the use or maybe because of my learning curve, and I abused the bits and maybe ran them either too hard, too fast, or maybe not fast enough to they were kind of burning up. But some of them are kind of getting a little bit duller, or maybe it's the quality, or a combination of the three.
Could be, a combination.
Yeah.
I went when I first got my CNC from X-Carve. I bought their bit collection. I bought a whole bunch of bits. I didn't know I was going to use, and I wanted to be able to basically out the gate go ahead and utilize this stuff. And one of the first things I started using a lot was the 60-degree, 90-degree bits.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm getting burning, and like it was horrible. And then like one of the first amount of bits I bought were those 60 and 90 degree, and I used them.
Expensive.
It's night. They're very expensive. Not gonna lie.
Yep.
But night and day difference. It blew my mind what a high quality bit could do.
Yep.
Yeah, I got a couple of projects coming up, and I'm already looking at getting some higher end compression bits, because a lot of it is plywood based. So like, if I'm going to be hacking a crap ton of plywood, I'd rather use a good high investment compression bit, because I know it's going to last a long time, and I can really send it going through that plywood. I mean, these are going to be long cuts. I don't want to be waiting around forever taking shallow passes, so I got to be ready to just hack it and go.
Yeah, that's one bit I don't have is a compression bit. And then I hear all the rave and everything, and I guess it depends on the compression bit, because most of them, like, you need at least a 1/4 inch pass for some of these. That way you have that upcut and that downcut both doing the job at the same time, right? Yep. But I ended up being a little overzealous, and I ended up buying, and I actually do like this company called IDC Woodcraft. This guy named Garrett
Okay.
Fromm, like he's on a lot of them, but he makes this one that's called the Hog. And this thing is like super aggressive bit. Like it's a roughing bit. It has flutes and all these ranges. And I guess this also depends on, what my machine can do, because it's not as structurally sound as what some of these other machines do, and versus seeing, maybe a 150 and X carve or anything like that, being able to rip into wood and do those deep passes without a whole lot of chatter. I ran a couple passes and this thing broke a couple of my belts and everything. I was just
wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, and
You
a lot of
had full send.
So that as advertised, like they said, like, oh yeah, you can cut through 1-inch wood in like 2 passes with this thing, right? But it's very rough, right? Like it's not made for a finishing pass, right? And on his videos, he has I want to say it's either a Shapeco or a 150, and he takes one of these and cuts through walnut in 1 pass, 1 inch, right?
Oh.
It almost like zero resistance, and it looks pretty cool. And seeing that, it's kind of like hard to believe, but then it goes back to one of those previous podcasts where we're looking at that one and from Pond CNC or PWN CNC.
Mm-hmm.
And they had that 150 just going like, what was it, 1,000?
Yeah.
And
that was cool, vid.
To see the capabilities of some of the machines is just crazy. But I learned I was a little overzealous because my machine, because it's pretty much all wood and it's not going to handle those hard passes like some of these other machines can do.
Yeah. That's
my restriction capabilities. And so I've been kind of hesitant about getting compression bit because I don't know much about them. Do I get a compression bit and, test it out and also do the same thing, risk breaking a couple belts? Sure, fine. The belts are cheap. Why not? But that's something I do want to kind of see into, because those compression bits have a lot of use to them. Mm-hmm. And it would be something that would kind of expand my capabilities or cut down on some work time.
Yeah, it definitely would help you. I mean, I don't know if a new CNC is in your future or not, but I mean, it definitely would help, having, metal structure versus the wood. Yeah. And
when you say kind of future, are you talking about near term or far term? Because that's a big difference,
Well, I mean, it all depends. Yeah, I mean,
when will
it all depends on what you
now?
want, man.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow's always coming, right?
Yeah, there it
now,
is.
I do have a aspiration, because getting into the woodworking, seeing you do what you do out of your little shop that you had in McGuire, like that little garage. Man, you had that thing just packed, but you had everything was dedicated. You had a system, you know what to do. Anything anybody came up with, people did. I mean, you did it. So you were able to execute. And I want to kind of get in there and be more well established. I finally got a name, Bird and Dust. Don't have an LLC yet. People ask me about that. Don't have a website. A lot of people ask me about getting on Etsy. I was like, well, I don't necessarily want to do that, because then I'm kind of more at the mercy of the customer instead of setting my own standard and my own schedule. And I'm already backlogged with things I promised people. But eventually, my game plan is when I retire, I have 16 years in, but I only have 12 active. So I only have 8 years left to go. By the time I retire, I want this to be my job. I want to be able to wake up every day and be like, yeah, I'm gonna do this at this time, set my own schedule, set my own jobs at my own pace, but be able to have the system and the products and the hardware to be able to do it. That's eventually going to be having a large garage or wood shop. I really want an Avid CNC. Those things look nice. They hit the pocketbook, but hopefully by the time in 10 years when it comes around, when it's an actual job, those things kind of pay in for itself. You establish that clientele. And one thing, being in the military, we're never short on jobs, especially when we're around a base. like everyone's always looking for something. Wood products, like even though like a lot of things go in and out of, I guess what would be the right term, like popularity at times. There's always a place for wood products. You know, people like tables, people like plaques, wood plaques. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be an aspiration. People are always is going to ask you to make this or make that. And if you're near a military community, you got guaranteed clients as long as you're good, you know, or can produce what people want when they want it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the key there too. Getting established is difficult. That could be like, for me, obviously I'm trying to get established here. You had to get established there. Getting that ball rolling. I am personally, and I was talking about this with another business owner, and we kind of like self-sabotage our progress a little bit because like we had that day job, we had that, you know, family, whatever. And, we can't get too busy. We have to have, you know, time out of the shop too. I mean, like, yeah, could we have all the jobs in the world? Absolutely. Will we ever get any sleep or rest? No.
I actually do want to see my children from time to time. I mean,
yeah, you know, I kind of like them. You know, I'm growing accustomed to them. I do want to mention, you know, it's kind of off the wall. My son had a basketball game tonight, and he made one hell of a basket. He did an amazing job. You know, I was grateful I was able to be there for, and like, worth mentioning, definitely.
That's good. How old? What is your son?
He is 7 years old.
Ooh.
So if you ever go to a 7, well, I think the age groups are like 6 to like 8, the age group, and their basketball games, they're really fun to watch.
Yeah, like the referee's just kind of just standing there and like, yeah, just.
There's no such thing as a double dribble.
Do what you want, you know. Traveling, everybody travels in this league.
Yeah, I mean, walking with the ball is kind of like the misstandard you didn't get the memo on. But sorry, I just wanted to mention, give him a shout out because he did so well.
Family.
But
because I mean,
just we're talking about it.
Like that is one thing that I don't think. I mean, in the military, but even in, you know, our hobbies or our job, we don't give enough credit to as a family because ultimately they're our support. They for us with spouses and everything, they allow us to kind of be out in our wood shop. They tolerate that.
To be honest, that's pretty much the most accurate statement I've heard when I'm referring to our spouses. They allow us to do this.
Yep. I mean, but believe me, there's been plenty of times where my wife, like she get frustrated because like she'll want to spend quality time, but like I'm in a cut, you know, like I'm a firm believer never leaving your machine unattended. Like now, like if I have to go drop a deuce or whatnot, I'll set up my little camera and I'll watch it from my phone while I'm dropping it. Like I'm not leaving this thing unattended, right? But there's been plenty of times where like she wants to go out and do something, or she wants to go have movie time, cuddle time, family time, whatever. But I can't. I got to knock out this project. I got to get it out, you know. Or I had a mistake, you know, halfway throughout the job. Now I got to go all the way back because got a deadline to meet, got to make the money, and they're dealing with that. And even though, like, my spouse, like, she doesn't understand too much of the ins and outs of the woodworking yet, and she's trying to learn, she's trying to understand, but she doesn't have the realm of understanding that we do. So she's been very compassionate and understanding of, hey, like, if I'm saying I'm going to do something, she just lets me be. And it's been great to have that have that support, and knowing, like, after every project she comes out and like she oohs and ahs and noggles about it, and you know, it's reassuring. Even though for me, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but there hasn't been a single project, and I'm not saying I put out bad work, right? I'm not saying I put out bad work. That's a little disclaimer, but there hasn't been a project I've put out that I've been 100% satisfied with.
Yeah, it's hard to be satisfied with your projects because we're our biggest critiques.
But I mean, there is a significant guilt factor too, right? I'm like, we're on the shop. I'm like, gosh, I should be doing something. I mean, I would absolutely love to have a table saw right in the middle of the living room so I can interact and that stuff at the same time. But that's just not a reality. So the next trick is, how can we get the family into the shop? And I think there's a million different answers on how to accomplish that feat.
Well, I mean,
it's hard.
Well,
Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I mean, one thing that I kind of did, in like my wife, she's a big individual on homemade stuff. Like she'll see stuff all over the internet and be like, "Hey, like I like this. Can you make this for me?" You know, and like when you're producing things in bulk and selling it online, it's going to be cheaper. Like it most of the time, and like quality, good or bad, doesn't matter. It's going to be cheaper when you're producing things in bulk, right? But she's asked me to do these one-offs. I'm like, that's going to cost me a lot more than that $17 you see on Etsy, just the material alone. But she wants me to do some of these things, so I'll get her out, and like we did a piece for her dad to where I just laser engraved, routed it out the edges, burned it up. But she was in the wood shop with me doing her little Mod Podge, learning about the systems, why things were the way they were, and learn like some of the attention to details. And she kind of grew an appreciation for it, even though for like 2 hours and I was passed out on the concrete back here because I had too much of a specialized bourbon that somebody gave me. However, like she was hard at work away doing woodworking, and she had severe anxiety. She didn't think it was going to turn out perfect or good or all because she's a perfectionist. But at the end of it, by the time it was done, like she had a greater appreciation. And then she sits back and she's like, I don't know how you do with how many jobs you have lined up, how you're not stressed out and everything. She grew in a better appreciation for me for it, and like how I maintain level-headed, and I can work through some of the problems that I have. So like that's just one way.
Yeah, one at a time, highest priority first.
Yeah.
Yep. Getting stressed out, I think we all do in the shop at some point. But like, it doesn't do you any good. Not at all. In fact, it's going to make a mistake somewhere because you're so stressed out. Lessons learned from the beginning for me. Like to this day, I'll make a mistake. And a lot of times now I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just do this and I'll fix that. But in the beginning, it was like world ending. Like, oh my God, I ruined this freaking piece.
Scrap the whole piece, start over.
Like you just, in your mind, it's like, it's over. Like that's it. Because you just wasted all this time and money on this. But, learning techniques, having a community like this, it helps us kind of get out of that mindset because it's like, well, what can I do to, move on? Make this a feature, charge $10 extra for it and move on. We all run into that. I ran into it. I did a sign the other day, a walnut sign. And I think I mentioned this on the podcast. I was talking to somebody. And basically, my bed aid level, apparently, again, I have to go fix that. But I was trying to shove some shims underneath the one side to kind of level it off because I could see what was happening. I went a little too far and ended up having to do multiple passes, still learning the program, and I didn't know how far or how deep I needed it. And I got it done. It looks great. You couldn't tell that I made a mistake. It looks actually almost like the original design. One line's a little thicker, and it looks like it's intentional. But the point of that story is like when it happened, I did say a choice word pretty loudly where they heard me inside.
God darn it.
Yeah, because it scared me. I mean, like, I lifted it up and you hear the bit go, and you're like, choice word. And I sat back. I'm like, well, what can I do? It's in the line. I just need a bigger line. And I believe I was talking to Ben, actually, Ben Warren, and we were talking back and forth. But it's part of that process, the learning curve and everything. And like, I hate to say it, but at some point you will enjoy it. When you make a mistake, it's like a challenge. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to scrap this entire project. What can I do to make it better? Or what can I do to not hide it, but like make it part of the
enhance
piece?
That feature.
Thank you. Enhance that feature.
It's a feature.
I actually had that, very similar situation after me, like on this last piece. So Well, my buddy, he asked me for two plaques, very similar in nature, right?
Yeah.
And both of them have a 3D model embedded into the wood. Now, I've done this piece several other times, but predominantly over cherry, and I love the way cherry cuts. I love the smell of it, the look of it, the way the grain pops. But he wanted me to do it in pine this time because the people he's receiving donations with, aren't forking out, the kind of money that would. So he's like, pine. And I kind of told him, I was like, well, it's going to be a little hairy. Like, I'm going to have a lot of finishing, that I'm going to have to do to it by hand. A lot of sanding, maybe some abrasive work. But on one of the pieces, the 3D modeling, and this is my fault for not divulging more into the software here, it was too deep into the wood that it wasn't turning out the way I wanted to, or how other pieces that I've done turned out. And so I had to scrap a whole, and I did the 3D image last, the 3D model last. I cut everything else out on the wood and everything, and did the 3D model last because it was going to take the longest runtime. And I got done. I'm like, I have this whole thing. It's completely done. What do I do? And I'm sitting here. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going back to the software and actually started looking more into the Vectric modeling software and how to raise the base height versus the shape height, to get to sit perfectly to where it wasn't so far down below the surface of the wood. It was just a little bit below it, and it would still kind of go over everything because I haven't really perfected, and I don't have a Spire to where I can edit the 3D models. So I'm at the forbearance of whoever I purchased the STL file from and hoping that it's a good STL file. And I ended up running a couple more pieces, is testing out the different depths and heights, and finally getting to a product that I wanted to do. But I was so angered with myself that I didn't do it beforehand that I was wallowing in my own self-pity. I'm like, I'm never going to get this stuff down. Why am I even doing this? This was a mistake. I just, it's I want to do this when I retire, but if I can't get this simple stuff down, I'm never going to retire with this as my job, And then, after I finally decided, overcome myself and, kind of check myself in the head, I, cut out a whole new piece, turned out great. The person loves it. I was like, all right, I'm better, Now I have examples and actual real life experience on, hey, if I'm seeing this, I need to do this now, and I need to go back to drawing board. So now maybe I can prevent things, but also the added feature of going back into the software and actually learning it, not just drop it in, plug, play, carve, like a simpleton that I am. That I can actually take my time when I do more 3D modeling, mess with the base height, get it where I want it, and have a better product in the end for the customer.
Yep. Absolutely. It's a journey. It's the best way I can explain it. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, it's rewarding. Seeing people receive what you make and seeing the look on their face and have the biggest compliment anyone, and personally for me, is when they come back, when they want more pieces. I've had my first shadow box ever made. I made for I was a master sergeant. It was a walnut stripe cherry facade, and I learned a lot. And during that process, I had Nap on the phone quite a bit, just trying to figure out different things, and just because it was new, it was something I haven't made before, and he has, and it's referencing his experience. In the end, they've reached out for more stuff. I mean, and they asked about it. I'm like, so how's that holding up? How's it going? And they're like, yeah, it hangs on the wall. It looks great. To this day, the finish is, looks like it's brand new. And that was, a year and a half ago, 2 years. Timeline wise, I'm not actually sure because it seems like forever ago. It's almost like a different state. But
yeah, almost, right?
Yeah. So
but that's I was just gonna say, I had the pleasure of having my first repeat customer. So a year ago, I made a bunch of these trophies for the city of Neenah, and like had to do like a brass inlay and stuff like that. A year later, they came back to me and like it felt pretty darn good. Pulling up all those CAD files, like I knew exactly what I had to do. Like the time to actually spit those out was so much better because they genuinely liked what I did the first time around. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
Congratulations, man! That it's a big deal. And I know I was telling, I think I told Sam before. I know I told Tim for me, large order plaques and stuff like that. That's where the money maker is.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I was doing them just before I left. Like I got into a rhythm with all these agencies and everything, and I really had that down. Hoping to get that here because I sure would like to get a fiber laser or something, some other piece of equipment. Because just like Sam, I'm trying to save for my retirement. That's my retirement plan, amongst some other stuff. It's a journey. We all start somewhere. We learn. We have that rough go of it. We learn from the rough go. We come out of it. We get returning clients. It's looking back. It's fun. During the time, sometimes it's frustrating as hell. Yeah, I wouldn't change a thing. Yeah, the people I've met just on some of the mistakes or some of the things I didn't know how to do. We're being able to reach out to like Tim. Be, hey man, he don't know it yet, but I'll be reaching out quite often here shortly when I'm getting into the CAD software. But to different people and being like, hey, I don't understand this. That's one thing that the military taught me is the different jobs I've done. It's okay not to know. It's better to say that you don't know than try to pretend. Well, figure out the answer yourself, or you try to find some help.
Yeah. Well, like even to that aspect too, like the correlation between like the military civilian side, like what we're doing on woodworking is like it's might be kind of a stretch in some mental bounds, but that we in the military and like civilian side does the same thing, but like we closely relate to in the military is trauma bonding. Like when you're in a crap unit with crap leadership and you're all going through the suck together, like even if you may not really care about the next guy, like you guys develop a certain bond because like you guys went through some stuff together, or you guys can always relate. You see each other like later on down the road and you're like, oh, hey, yeah, you start shooting crap with the individual. So like I have a group chat on my phone that I still talk with people, like 8 other people from when I was at McGuire, and it's called Team Disgruntled. And we went through like the most toxic leadership that we ever experienced in our whole career. And like, we're talking about people that are like sergeant majors, master sergeants, E8, E9s at the top tier that like I'm connecting with, I'm talking every day over trauma bonding. Right. But we also have the same thing, like even in our maker chat or even on this Patreon to where like we're, bonding with each other, not just on our product and everything. Cause how many people woodwork, like so many, but like we have a unique kind of group because we all reference each other. We know each other from, Tim and Sally and Bob and Jim, whoever else, but we call each other, we reference each other. One of us sparked an innovative or imaginative idea from the other. Or so like it's not necessarily trauma bonding, but like we troubleshoot with each other. I know I've done it with you. I've called you up, Josh, and, kind of worked over some things with you. And it's kind of like established that better relationship to where it's like, hey, like this is a good, solid community to where like I'm not in this by myself. A lot of businesses may go through and like they feel like that they're at wit's end. They're the only support that they have is themselves. Like us, like not do we just have our spouses and our friends, but we have this whole community, and it's very reassuring. And like I get on every day and I see that mixture and I see like the magnificent work that everybody does, and it sparks my stuff. Or like constantly like people are feeding it like, hey, have you tried this, or what about this, or do this or that. And it's like nothing but gratitude. There's very little like short snips or attitudes or anything. Like everyone's welcoming, and it's a great community to be in. And it like reminds me a lot about being in the military when you formalize a good culture and a good community to work with, that you have, reliance not just on yourself, but in others. And if you can't overcome a problem, more than likely one of you guys have encountered that problem and have different ways on to solve it. So it's it's a very good thing to have, and I'm very appreciative of it.
Yeah. Civilian side, Tim, I'm sure there's some trauma bonding that goes on in developmenting and stuff like that too.
I would say there's poor leadership everywhere you go. That is not just reserved for the military.
Yep. I mean, that's also the good thing about like what we're aspiring to do is like having our own shops and being our own bosses is, you know, like we get to have our own inward reflection of how we manage our own stuff. But
if my ship sinks, it's my fault. I know who sank that ship.
Yep. And it's like a lot of times in most day-to-day, like everyone wants to point the finger, you know, but like when we're doing it ourselves, like we point the finger at ourselves more often than not.
Absolutely.
In my experience, I've only been doing this for like a year and a half, but like in my experience, I point the finger at myself. So.
Yep.
Yeah, that's that. Tim, did you want to add anything?
Other than just encouraging people to just go out and learn something, even if you already know how to do that thing and you're listening to somebody else tell you how to do that thing, listen anyway, because you're probably going to learn a different perspective.
On that real quick, I know personally when you teach something and you teach it to someone that already knows the information, you might learn something or teach the other person something else, but you reinforce information that you know. It helps you expand upon that confidence in many different ways. Some solid advice, man. Sam, you got any last words?
I mean, I would just like keep putting out work, you know, like no matter what you put out, every piece that you do, good, bad, scrap, you know, your best product, like every single bit of it is definitely a reflection of where you came from to where you are. And even the best people have their off days. So no matter like even if we mess up or we have the bad products, it's always going to end up getting better. We're going to overcome, resource out, you know, divulge into the community. But at the end of the day, enjoy the sawdust.
Yep.
I like that. Enjoy the sawdust. Awesome advice there too. Sam, thank you for coming on. It was kind of last
thanks for having me.
Definitely enjoy you popping up. Tim, thank you for joining us. I think we're going to see Tim a little bit more up and coming. So that smiling face of his. Where's the clock, though?
And them Christmas lights that are still up way too late.
You know what?
Hey.
Pipe down.
I know. Hey, I have no room to talk. The inside of my house is still decorated.
I'm kind of slacking on the Christmas stuff. It's just, you know, life's been busy, and it's okay.
Yep.
It's been very busy. Very busy.
Holidays, it just seems like it gets busier every year. So thank you for joining me tonight. Like I said, you're going to be seeing Tim more often. I'm sure we'll have Sam back on here some other time from Burn and Dust, which he's changing his Instagram page tonight for.
I'll do it.
Yeah, okay.
Do it.
I'll do it.
So thank you for listening to episode 185 of Sawdust Nation Podcast. We hope you enjoyed.
185, man.
Yes, 185. April, I think, is the 200th episode, which there'll be a giveaway. Actually, let's take a moment to talk about that. It's going to be a maker giveaway. So, that being said, there might be a couple projects given from different people and some products from some other businesses and stuff. But primarily, we want to do a maker giveaway because if we preach community, we preach about helping each other out, and if we can advertise and get people's business and their work out there, and people can win and have that at their home and their business, what better way to help the community?
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, there's going to be some changes this year, and that's kind of the direction I'm moving toward 100%. You know, we preach about it, and the only way to do it is just dive into it. So for the 200th giveaway, we'll be posting all the giveaways for the year, but we're looking for people to sign up for that. If you want to do a project and have that for a giveaway item, please reach out to us through our email at sawdustnationpodcast.com, our Instagram page, my personal page, North Country Woodworking. Just reach out. We'll get you up there. Tell us what you want to make. We'll put you on the listing, and we'll start advertising for that. We might have a big item. We're waiting on final approval. that will be a game changer, hopefully, to someone out there. So, again, thank you for listening to the episode. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. And get in the shop, go make some sawdust. The Sawdust Nation podcast is out.
Later.
Later, Gator.
I still have 9 7/8 of my fingers, so I'm good.
Yeah.